everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Elsie from Cape Verde and welcome to International XP. Today we have Damian Etone um, and we will be sharing some international experience. Dr. Damian is a lecturer in international human rights law and joined the University of Stirling. As you can see, we have in University of Stirling as a background, and he joined in 2019. He's a co-director for the master's program in human rights and diplomacy, and Damien completed his master's in international criminal human rights law at Bangor University in 2013, and a PhD in international human rights at the University of Adelaide, Australia in 2017, and has previously received the Chevening Scholarship Award, which he will be talking more about. His experience has been a Chevener in the UK. Received the scholarship between the years of 2012 and 2013. So thank you so much, Damon, for accepting the invitation to share a little bit about your experience.
Thank you very much, Elsie, for having me and to join your YouTube subscribers today.
Thank you. So to start our conversation, I would begin from the beginning. So let's start about the beginning of your journey as a Chevening. Please share with us, how did you find out about the scholarship, the Chevening Scholarship? As you came from Cameroon, which is an African country, tell us a little bit, how did you find out about it?
Like most students, when they finish their undergraduate degree, I was looking for what to do after my undergraduate degree and possibilities for funding for a master's degree. I did came across the Chevening Scholarship in one of my searches, but my first thought when I came across the Chevening Scholarship was, I don't think this is for me. I think the requirements, I'm not able to meet what the requirements they're asking for. I think at the time they were asking for, I think, a 3 years work experience, if I remember correctly. And I really did not have what I thought at the time was work experience for up to 3 years. And so that was my first impression. But then I thought, well, I have done quite some work during my undergraduate degrees as part of a student body, serving within the Law Society at the University of Buea in Cameroon in different student roles. So I thought, well, although I wasn't paid for that, but that could count as work experience. So I combined all the experiences I had in those roles while I was within my 3 years of undergraduate degree, and thought, that would be sufficient for a 3-year work experience, and I applied for the Chevening Scholarship with that. I was not sure I was going to get it. In fact, I had forgotten that I applied for it until I got the call from the British High Commission in Cameroon indicating that I have been provisionally selected for the scholarship. And the interview also went really well, and I was really excited. It was one of the highlights of my journey to be selected for the Chevening Scholarship. So those were the initial processes within which I got the Chevening Scholarship.
Well, that's really interesting, Damien, because a lot of people also think don't have enough like backgrounds or experience to apply for Chevening Scholarship, and I think that we should have, like, for example, after finishing more 2 years or 3 years experience before we are eligible to apply. But of course, it's not like that. So if you have, for example, extracurricular experience, that counts as a Chevening experience. So if you think you have the potential to change other people's lives or to make a difference in your society, please do apply, because it's going to be considered by Chevening. For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So to talk a little bit about your experience with universities in the UK, we know that, for example, for Chevening, I don't know how it was a few years ago, but for me, for example, I was able to choose between 3 universities for the same course that I would like, or the same course for three universities different. So how did you apply for it? How did you choose your universities to study in the UK?
So before, I think the first thing I did before even applying for Chevening Scholarship was to attempt to apply for admissions directly. And I think that was one of the things that actually worked in favor of me when I went for the interview, because unlike some other applicants who came for the interview, I already had offers of admissions from the UK universities. So I think if you are thinking about applying for Chevening Scholarship, I would say get ahead of things and apply for admissions directly, such that when you go for the interview, you can show evidence that you already have those admissions. I think in terms of the how I went about selecting the programs, um, I was looking for something that was relevant to what I had done at the undergraduate level in Cameroon, but in my area that was interesting, but also something that I thought I could make the most impact when I returned to Cameroon. And so I was looking for a program that gave me the greatest options and the greatest choices. And that was how I decided to choose Bangor University in Wales, where I did my master's with Chevening. And the program there was a master's in human rights and international criminal law. I was kind of looking for a program that gives me the widest possible options. And so I could have gone for a master's degree in just human rights, but that would have limited me, or I would have gone for a master's degree in just international criminal law. That would have limited me. So I went for a master's that kind of combined the two, such that after my master's degree, I can choose to work in an area of human rights or choose to work in an area of international criminal law. So I would say within your area of passion, within the area where you think you can make the most impact, do not try to limit yourself to narrow programs. Go for programs that offer you the widest possibilities, programs that cut across different disciplines. And I think in the way research and the way studies, the way work is happening in the 21st century, people would have skills and expertise in multiple areas, a greater asset than people who have skills in just one specific area. I think it's because our lives and the things we want to do, the changes we want to make, they're connected in several ways. And so if you can be able to be involved in programs that give you that kind of an interdisciplinary approach, that would be programs that you can make the greatest impact with.
I think that's really interesting and smart to choose and apply for the university before your interview. Of course, that makes a huge difference, and it can stand your application up. So that's really good. So you said that you went to the University of Bangor in Wales. So tell us a little bit, how was your experience? Was like other Cheveners there? How was it? Because, for example, at University of Stirling, we had like a group. Of course, it's more virtual because of COVID-19, but also it would be great if it would. So probably yours was even better because there was like in-person experience. So tell us a little bit, how was it?
Yeah, I would say you definitely have it harder this time around because of COVID, and the inability to meet other Chevening scholars is kind of restricted because of the COVID restrictions that we have. But I think I had it a little bit harder as well. I think coming from Cameroon, which was very hot, and moving to Wales, which was very cold, I think that was the first thing that surprised me. I had to wrap up warm. I didn't know how to wrap up warm. I think I tried my best, but I still was very cold. So it was a journey to actually adapt to the new environment. But I think the number of Chevening scholars that came to Wales, to university in Wales, was not many compared to what you would have in England. Most Chevening scholars, many of them were found within English universities, and not too many in Welsh universities. So I did at the time have just about 3 or 4 that I communicated more often with. So there was not a lot of that community within Bangor University at the time. Now I hear there is a lot more Chevening scholars going there, so it's quite kind of different today. I think at the time, what guided my choice was not how many Chevening scholars were going to that part of the UK, but rather whether that part of the UK offered me the best possible program. But I think even without the Chevening community present in Wales, there were still opportunities for us to meet in welcome events in London, welcome events in other parts of the UK where Chevening scholars all came together. And it was possible then because there was no COVID. It was possible then because there was no restrictions in place, so Chevening scholars could all travel and come together. So that was something which was very much possible then. Now it's limited because of COVID, but also I think maybe because of COVID, there is a lot more opportunities for more Chevening scholars to meet easily because it's all virtual. But I think there's still a missing element of one-to-one interactions, which is important for the duration of the Chevening Scholarship. I was fortunate that the parts of England which were closer to Wales, there were some Chevening scholars there that I met with them very often, some scholars from Nigeria, some scholars from Zimbabwe. We're still great friends today. So the Chevening journey really helps to build that bond among scholars.
That's really interesting, and I do agree with you. I think it's very important for people that are selecting the universities to not focus just on, for example, the local, like the place that they want to live. For example, a lot of people just go to London because they want to live in London and they just choose the universities according to that. So it's important as well to think about what are the modules, for example, what are the course, the program structure that you want. And it's important as well to have other things in mind, for example, cost of living, everything. So I agree with you in that, and also
I think Wales still is one of the best parts of my experience in the UK. So even though there were not too many Chevening scholars there, I thought, wow, it was great. There was Snowdonia. There were great sites to actually visit. It was the people were friendly. The community was great. The university was fantastic. I think that I was treated a lot more special because there were few Chevening scholars there. So I had the best of the experiences there. So I would say certainly maybe from a personal bias here, but I would say living in Wales, even now, I still think it's a lot more pleasant than living in England.
Yeah,
so it's definitely a great place for anyone considering a university.
Scotland is really a good place to live, I would say. So I will be biased as well. There a lot of people, for example, that have doubts and come to me with questions about, for example, the fees. So tell us how did you do with the fees? For example, for me, I chose the universities that wouldn't ask, or for example, it was I was able to explain. For example, for University of Stirling, I sent them an email and I told them I'm applying for Chevening, so I'm waiting for the decision. That's why I didn't pay yet. So they understood, and that was great. But there were some Cheveners that had to pay the fees for inscription. So how was it for you?
I think for me, I did not have to pay. I think the timing of when I got my scholarship and the timing for when the university expected deposits to be paid kind of matched quite well. So the university actually got the deposit directly from the full payment directly from Chevening. The only difficulty I had with the university was when I applied for admission, I did get a I think it was a £2,000 tuition discount from the university, which was never reimbursed to me by Chevening because I was told, well, it's a discount on the fees and they can't return the cash to me. But I would say if you are thinking about those issues and in terms of the timeline, most universities would be flexible enough to wait for an outcome from Chevening before making a final decision on your or making your offer from conditional to unconditional. I think the timeline for Chevening awards is about the same for across the world. So I think they make the awards to match with programs that begin in September. There might be difficulties there if your program begins, say, in January. But that may still be a possibility because I know there are several Chevening scholars who undertake programs that begin in January. So it might be possible that if your program has both a January and a September start, if by September you haven't heard from Chevening, then you might ask them to defer the start of your program to a January start. So those possibilities are still something that you should explore if there is a delay. But definitely if you can afford to secure your place, then by all means do secure your place. But that is usually a tough call for many students to afford the amount of money needed. But I think for many of the UK institutions, including the University of Stirling, if you pay the deposit but you're still unable to come, that deposit will be refunded back to you.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the essays, which is a huge part about the Chevening application and makes a huge difference between how being selected or no to go to the next level. So how did you, what do you think was the main points that make your application different from the others and, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the key things, and it's actually the beauty of Chevening Scholarship, is that it's a leadership scholarship, and leadership interpreted in the broadest terms. For some people, they see leadership as maybe having a position, having a role, a superior role in an organization. That is not necessarily the type of leadership that Chevening is looking for. So I think one of the things that would stand out is whether you can lead, whether it's on an idea, on a concept, on a project in your area. And the good thing about Chevening is it doesn't really require that you demonstrate that you have led. It requires that you demonstrate that you have the potential to lead. So I think the key word there is the potential and not necessarily the evidence of having led. If Chevening was being awarded just to people who have already shown that they are leaders, then it defeats the goal of Chevening, because the goal is to build people who have that potential to lead. So I would say in demonstrating that in different parts of your application, you have to ensure that you have a coherent story to tell. If your application is disconnected in terms of what you want to do in the future and what you've done in the past, then your application is a weaker application. And so if you are kind of demonstrating how you meet those leadership requirements, you might want to show maybe some initiative that you've taken before, maybe an initiative in terms of volunteering, an initiative in terms of developing a project or developing a small business, an initiative in terms of maybe peace building or bringing people together. And then you connect that to what you want to do in the future. So maybe in the future you want to become a community leader. Maybe in the future you want to work on bigger projects and you think a master's degree is going to be giving you the skills to be able to achieve that. That is a good story to tell, because your skills of the past kind of looks forward to what you want to do in the future, and the master's program you're seeking for is something that will help you get there. So I think it's how you identify that you have that potential to actually achieve that. If it's a clear case of leadership that you've demonstrated in your application, that is a really, really strong application. I know it's sometimes difficult when Chevening asks you for a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. Those can get tricky in terms of how you develop a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, or a 10-year plan. And it's just a plan. You do your best to stick to the plan, but it doesn't always end up the way you think it's going to end up. I think my 3-5-year plan turned out better than what I wrote down in my Chevening application. So you should see it as a plan. It's the moment of your application where you need to reflect on what do you want to be in 3 years' time. What skills do you have now? How are they going to help you to go to where you want to be? How is the master's program going to help you to where you want to be in 3 and 5 year time? Some people, especially those who are in the arts and humanities, applying for Chevening Scholarship, maybe in 3 years' time, you see yourself as maybe starting an NGO on a particular issue you're passionate about. Maybe you see yourself maybe taking a leadership role in a bank and trying to change certain ways in which banking is done in your society or business is done in your community. Maybe if you're working within the health sector, maybe you want to see how you transform community health there. If you can kind of map out that in 3, 5, and 10 years, that puts your application in a strong position.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I think it's very important to link how your background, how your master's degree, and how your future plan will connect. And if you can do that the best way possible with examples, with clear vision of what you see, and how do you see yourself in the future. And also it's important to think about not about just you as an individual, but also as a collective. How do you see yourself causing a positive impact on your community, on your society? So I do agree with you. That's really important. Also, I came from Cape Verde, which means we speak Portuguese and we need to do our English test to being able to have a university offer, for example. So, and it's when you come here, it's very difficult to, for example, when you're doing assignments and stuff and you have to switch from Portuguese and Creole to English, it's sometimes it's not easy, but it's very good because the UK programs, for example, there is no stop or no for example break. So when you have to do it and keep going, and then there is the dissertation part, which so that's really good. So I would like to ask you, if for Cameroon, how is it in Cameroon? Do you have an English test, or
for most Cameroonians, they would not need an English test to get an admission here in the UK. I think probably because if they have passed the Cameroon Ordinary Level English, they can get a waiver for the requirement here. But Chevening still requires you to write the English language test and pass it as a condition of your Chevening scholarship. So I did write the TOEFL as part of my Chevening scholarship application, and I think many Cameroonians still do the language requirement. Although for many universities within the UK, if you're from Cameroon, you can get an unconditional offer without that language requirement.
Perfect. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the interview, which is something that now mostly of the Cheveners applicants are preparing. How did you prepare for your interview? Also, tell us a little bit about your experience because, for example, for me, I'm sure it was different because I did it online, but I did it twice. My first time, I didn't pass because it was difficult. I was working and I couldn't get, I was not prepared, I would say. So my second one was better because it was lockdown. I know lockdown is not a great thing, but also every single thing has a good and a a bad and a good part. And the good part of it is that I was at home and I could prepare well for my interview, and it went well because of that. So how was your experience with the interview?
Well, when I had the Chevening offer made, I was invited to the interview. I was excited because I didn't believe, as I mentioned, that I would even be shortlisted or invited for an interview. So I think that was already an achievement for me, and that I was invited for the interview. But one of the things that happened, because it was a long time between when I applied for the Chevening Scholarship and when the interview was, I had done so many things and so many applications in between that I had actually forgotten what I wrote in my Chevening application, and I did not have a copy saved of that Chevening application. So I was going into the interview not knowing what exactly I had written in the application. And I was not the only one like that, because one of the person I met in the interview while I was waiting for my turn also told me that they could not remember what they wrote in their Chevening. So maybe an advice is make sure you save your Chevening application when you apply for it so that you can come back to it and refer to it. But I think the one thing I would say that is really important at the stage of your Chevening interview is passion. You need to be able to demonstrate that you're passionate about the issue that you have written in your application, about your career, about your interest and your goals. I think that was the one thing that saved me in the interview, because I was consistent. My passion had not changed. I was interested in one thing and one thing only, so I could still talk about it broadly. But for some of the questions that were asked, I think I've been only in one interview, but I've spoken to a few people who've been through several interviews. I think you need to be prepared for you to be asked questions about yourself. I think sometimes it's difficult in an interview when they ask you to introduce yourself. You don't know where to start and where to end. It seems to be like a broad question for you to talk about yourself. I think you need to be able to have some knowledge and understanding of the course that you want to go and do, that you can talk about why the course is important to you. You must be able to have some idea about what you want, what you think Chevening will be beneficial to your home country, the course that you want to do, or how you think it's going to help you make a difference in the community. I think that's what Chevening wants to know. Is it going to help you make a difference in your community? And I think the one thing you also have to be able to be prepared for during the interview is, how are you going to ensure that the story you told in your application maintains itself? Because they would have your application in front of you. They will also have your weaknesses in front of you, the parts that they think you're not doing so well, and they're going to challenge you about those parts. I remember very well, they asked me in my interview that because I was about 0.2 short of a first-class degree. So they asked me, why did I not get a first-class degree? It wasn't a question that I applied, I had planned for or prepared for, but I didn't remember that well. I just told them I didn't get a first-class degree because I was doing these other extracurricular activities to make myself a well-balanced student. Good. So I think sometimes you just have to, those ideas have to come out naturally to see where you are strong at and where you're weak at. But you would have many interesting questions during the interview. I think they differ from one person to another. Sometimes you might be asked about whether you plan to return to your country at the end of your Chevening Scholarship. So that's something that you might want to think about as well, and what response you would give to questions like that. I think practicing interviewing is an important skill for someone who's not done it ever before. So it might be helpful for you to practice and how to maintain your calm, how to maintain confidence, how to give an answer which is more than just a yes or no. Those are kind of important skills that when you ask the question, you don't just simply give yes, but maybe you add some reasons why you think that is yes.
Sure, no, I agree with you. I think that's very important to know. Even if you don't know what they're gonna ask you, it's important to prepare in a way that you know you can answer every single thing or probably every questions that they would ask you, for sure. So tell us if it was online or in person. How was it?
It was in person. I think that was it was in person. Actually, it was when I was called into the interview. I had waited out for about an hour. And when I got into the interview room, I wonder what world they were living in, because the temperature was so cold. They had turned on the air condition. I was not used to that level of it's hot in Cameroon. I was coming from a town which was really hot. And when I got in there, it was too cold and I was shivering, and they asked me if they should offer me a tea to warm me up. I said no, if they can turn down the air condition, that would be great, so that I can feel a little bit warm. So I think I thought maybe that's not going so well for me then. But I think it was. The panic will be there. The tense, you'll be tense. You'll be panic. I would say have some good rest before your interview. Try to not see the interview as a do or die affair. I think in my case, I was a little bit more relaxed because I already felt I was lucky to even be shortlisted. So I thought, to me, that was an achievement. So I went into the interview feeling whatever happens, I'm even glad to have had the honor of being selected for an interview. And it did turn out that calm, that confidence was something that was really helpful. And I think the reason why they really need that from you, that confidence, is because as future leaders, Chevening's a leadership scholarship. And as a leader, you need to feel confident in your ideas, confident in yourself, confident in the issues. And I think that's what they really want to see come out during the interview, that you are confident. Sometimes you may not get the scholarship, not because you didn't do so well in the interview. It may just be because they had a pool of extremely strong candidates and it was a tough call to make. So sometimes interviews do work like that, not because you didn't do really well, but simply because it was a really tough call to make. There were really great and strong candidates that came in for the interview.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now talking about the references, I don't know how it was for you, but for me, for example, I needed 2 referees, and it could be academic or professional. So how did you choose your referees?
My referees were academic, and I had planned to include one work referee, but I thought they didn't know me so well. So I really choose the academic referees because they knew a lot more about my academic performance. They knew a lot about my extracurricular activities. So I thought they could really be in the position to really write a good reference. And sometimes it's really good to get in touch with your referees well in advance so that they can be able to write a good reference for you. There was one referee that I knew a lot about my work and about what I'm doing, but I thought I would not put them in because they would not have written. They didn't have the time to write a good reference for me. I think that's what is really important. The person that can get a time to write a good reference for you. Someone can be had a great profile. You can put someone's name that you think the person has a great reputation, but then the person just write a one sentence reference for you, which doesn't carry much weight. So I would say be very careful who you select as a referee, and ensure that you select someone who can really take a time to write a good reference to support your application.
That makes perfect sense, and it's really important to choose someone that can for example, for me, I chose two people that I was working with at an NGO. It was not academic; it was more about professional experience. But it was really good because they knew me well and what I was capable of. So it's important as well. Try to choose wise. Not because you have, for example, I will be just choosing academic or professional. What it really matters is if the person that know you well and know what you're capable of and can reference you the best way.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how was your experience in the UK, because that's a big part, especially from us that came from Africa. And of course, the weather is a really good aspect and challenging for us. So, how did you experience the UK culture?
Oh, well, coming from Africa, it can be kind of a really a shock in terms of the weather. For the first time, if traveling to the UK is your first time, it was very cold, and again, September is not summer. September it gets really, really cold. So that was one of the shock in terms of the weather. The other thing that I thought I had to adjust to is also in terms of the food. I think I had to do a lot of adjustments to that. In Cameroon, as in most of West Africa, there's this heavy food culture. And so coming here and trying to find your ingredients and trying to adapt to that, I was not told that I had to be able to bring some food stuff with me when I was coming. That would have been great advice if you can. But it was difficult to adapt in that way when I came. Also, I think it will be one of the things and the nice things of being in the UK is you really exposed to that rich culture as well in terms of the celebrations that they have. I remember it was my first time of Halloween. Then someone came and knocked on my door, and some kids, and then they said trick or treat. I had no clue what they were talking about, and I said, I just closed the door, and then they knocked again, and then they said trick or treat. Then I just gave them one evil look. What are you disturbing me? I don't know what you want. So it's only later on that I realized that what they wanted was just sweets, and that it was the nature of that Halloween and how it's celebrated, and you have to give them sweets. So that was something that I really had to adapt to. But the educational system is definitely worth having. I think it was a rich educational system and experience, and the skills that I was able to acquire during my master's degree was fantastic, and it's something which has really pushed my career forward in terms of the specific skills, the way I was taught, the quality of lecturers I was exposed to. The people who taught me when I was doing my master's in Bangor, one of them is still my mentor till today. They've supported me through different stages of my career, so it was definitely a worth undertaking that program at Bangor. The level of support that I received kind of completely different from the kind of support that I received in my undergraduate when I was in Cameroon. So it was great in certain ways, in certain aspects. It took me time to adapt, but I'm sure Chevening scholars are great at adapting to different circumstances. So that was something which took time, but I got there eventually. And it was great to see most of the UK as well, traveling around and experiencing different parts of the UK. I think it was a rich experience. It was probably a lot more challenging for us at the time, especially three of us who came from Cameroon, because we were on a partial Chevening Scholarship fund, which was not great because it limited the amount of networking we could do. It limited the amount of events we could attend. We were not as lucky as you people are now in terms of a full scholarship that most Cameroonians, all Cameroonians now do get for Chevening. But it was still a remarkable experience.
No, for sure. I agree with you. I think one of the best experience about Chevening is the networking and the wonderful people that you can meet along the way. We are almost at the end of this interview. Very interesting, by the way. Thank you. So, how was, in relation to your expectations, how would you describe your experience? Did Chevening Scholarship meet your expectations that you had before coming to the UK to do your master's degree? And also, would you be able to give some tips for people that are applying for Chevening right now?
I would say Chevening is a fantastic scholarship. It's certainly life transforming in many different ways. At the time that you get the Chevening Scholarship, you would see it probably as an achievement. But when you take up the Chevening Scholarship, you realize that it's actually the start, not the end of a really remarkable career. It has the potential to open up more doors for you. And I think that's one of the things that Chevening is a respectable scholarship. I do think that when you apply for a Chevening Scholarship, especially if you're coming from a country like Cameroon, where I'm coming from, where we're very skeptical of scholarships and the process for award of those scholarships. People in Cameroon would generally, myself included, there are some scholarships that I would not apply for because it's a waste of time, since they're not based on merit. They're based on some other factors which I may not want to go into. But with Chevening, you can trust that your application would be given the greatest consideration. It is based on merit. And I knew none of those who interviewed me for my Chevening scholarship. So it was based exclusively on the merit of my application and on the merit of my interview. So I would say, if you put in the effort into your application, if you put in the effort into your interview, on the basis of merit, you would be able to get the Chevening Scholarship. And it is a respectable scholarship because many people who've gotten a Chevening Scholarship have gone on to get other scholarships. And it's become a lot more easy. If they see that you are a Chevening scholar, they give you a lot more respect. Your application is considered with a lot more promise because Chevening does gives you that opportunity to demonstrate your leadership, to be able to build a career for yourself, for many Africans, it's certainly a life transforming opportunity to be able to study in the UK on a fully funded Chevening scholarship. We know how expensive it is to live and study in the UK, and so that opportunity to have that fully funded and covered by Chevening is wonderful. But also, it's a great network. Having a Chevening scholarship brings you into this fantastic network of Chevening scholars, and it's wonderful to see Chevening scholars doing fantastic things in different parts of the world, in government, in business, in law. You do have Chevening scholars making a big difference. So definitely it's a scholarship you want to apply for. It's a scholarship you would be honored to have. It's a scholarship that would push you into different stages of your career. So I'm definitely encouraging you, if you are still on the borderline and thinking of whether you should apply for this scholarship, I'll say go for it. It's definitely something which will make a big difference in your life. One of the benefits I have had is when I did my master's in Bangor, the person who became my mentor, who was the director of my program, was also a Chevening scholar. And that connection brought us closer, gave the support that was necessary for me to get to the next stage of my career. But also, I know of many Chevening scholars who have been able to get jobs and opportunities based on that network of Chevening scholars that they were exposed to at the end of their Chevening award. So I'm sure in Cape Verde, as in Cameroon and other parts of the world, there were Chevening alumni networks doing fantastic things and training sessions and guidance and interviewing. I would say make use of those opportunities. I would say get in contact with those networks. That was something that perhaps I would have done even better in my application if I had done a session with a Chevening scholar that they explained to me how this process works. I knew on the basis of the fact that I was told by those who interviewed me at the end of my award that my application was one of the very contentious ones, that they were not sure because of it wasn't as strong as some others, but the interview was strong. So the interview can make a lot of difference. I think my interview pushed my application over the finish line. So I would say as much as you can practice and be confident and show that you may not have all the facts about what you're talking about, but sometimes if you're confident in the way you say it, it can go a long way in making a difference. So definitely, Chevening is one of the best scholarships out there.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you. So we are now at the end of this interview. I would like to thank you a lot because that is a great conversation and very helpful tips. So I hope that you take good tips and good aspects of this interview and you can apply on your Chevening application. Thank you so much, Damian, for accepting the invitation and for this great conversation about Chevening and for sharing your experience here. I'm sure it will make a difference on someone application. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. And it's a pleasure to have another Chevening scholar again with me today.
Thank you.